What is going on, my fellow Summit Chasers? There we go. All the focus on here. I'm very excited to be here today for another episode of the Founders Focus. And also, before we get started, we have a little bit of an announcement to make. So we talked about it, I think, actually just did a podcast where I announced it, but that podcast isn't going to be out for another month or so. But we just announced that we're going to be launching a challenge. It's a 5-day, we call it the Summit Strategy Core Challenge. Now, the focus of this challenge, let me pull up a fun little picture that we made. Look at that. Look at that art. Canva is an amazing thing. And I did this one on my own. So give me your criticisms. Usually Adrina is the master artiste. But this time I took over and I thought I did a pretty good job. But myself and Paco are going to be running a 5-day challenge. And we are very excited about this challenge, mostly because of, obviously how confident we are in the changes, the focus and the improvements that it can make on you and your business and your life as well. It's getting really clear on where your focus should be, what type of strategy you should be implementing and starting towards, what type of experiments should you be running, where's your focus, clearing a path for you so you have a much better idea of where to take your business, what decisions to make. What do you focus on? How do you measure your success? Because this one's a fairly passionate project of mine. First of all, because a lot of what we're going to be doing in this challenge is a fairly big part of what we do with our clients. And we're going to go over actually today some case studies on how these simple concepts that we're going to be we are going to be implementing in these challenges can make a huge impact on your business. And when I say huge impact, I mean like thousands, if not millions of dollars types of differences. And I'll give you an example today of how this the strategy core concept came to be and how it has really helped our clients, and it can help many other businesses. It can help your business, your life, achieve more clarity and focus and success. So we're very excited. It's going to be 5 days, 5-day challenge. It's going to be from a Tuesday until a Saturday. So it'll be Tuesday to Friday night, and it's going to start on October 22nd. So really quickly, I'm going to drop is this going to go in all the comments? I guess we'll find out. Drop a link right now in the comments. It's definitely on YouTube. And that link will send you to the landing page, and you can get all signed up there as well. It's not going to be at this price for very long. And I'm not saying that because it's like, get it now or else you'll never be there again. We're not going anywhere. A, we're not going anywhere. And B, the reason that we have it at the price that it is, it's $100, 5-day challenge, is because this is going to be our first one that we're running in this capacity. And we want it to be a win-win situation here. This normally would be somewhere south. It'd be 4 digits. It would be between $900 and $1,000 type of thing. But because this is our first one, we want to get feedback. We want to be able to make sure that we're providing as much value as possible. So because it's our first one, and there might be some hiccups and that kind of stuff. And again, we want your feedback, and we want you to be part of that inaugural cohort. So we're putting it down to $100 just for this one time, and then it's going to go up from there really, really quickly. So again, you can go to that link. It's going to start October 22nd, Tuesday to Friday. It's going to be in the evening, so it's going to start at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So if you're on the West Coast, way West Coast, it'll be 4 p.m. If you're on the East Coast, it'll be 7 p.m., I believe, your time. So 7 p.m. Eastern your time. So it'll be from Tuesday to Friday. And then the last day, it'll be on Saturday morning. And the sessions are going to run between 60 and 90 minutes. And we're capping it at 10 people. And the reason we're capping it at 10 people is because we want to make sure that you get as much value out of this as possible. We don't want this to be a challenge or a webinar or a master class where you're just sitting there, you're listening to people taking notes, like, okay, I'll do that, whatever it is. We're going to get you involved. You're going to be engaged. You're going to be challenging. We're going to be challenging your ideas. You're going to be challenging your own ideas. You're going to be challenging each other's ideas. So you're not just going to hear from us. You're going to hear from your peers of like-minded business owners, and you're going to challenge each other, and you're going to push each other, okay, to get outside of your current thinking, to look at your businesses in a different way, to diagnose problems differently, to diagnose challenges differently, identify threats, opportunities, and strengths that are leverageable differently, and how to implement those into a strategy. Now, a lot of these, and I've been a part of a lot of these before, and all they do is they just sit here and you got them for 5 days or 3 days or however long it is, and you're just setting goals. Okay, did everybody make their vision board today? Identify an enemy. Do you have an enemy? Okay, the enemy. Now you want to picture this enemy in your head every morning when you wake up, and that's who you're going to be. It's not a strategy. Goal setting is great. It's the start. And you'll see that the goals change all the time too, right? Just like strategies do. But that's not strategy. It's just setting goals. Making a wish list is not a strategy. If you don't have a coherent plan of action to achieve those goals, as my grandma would always say, you can wish in one hand and shit in the other and see which one fills up first. Very proud of that sentiment from my grandma. So we are going to make it very clear for you how to create what we call the strategy core. Okay, and that's what we've been talking about on a lot of these the Founders Focus. We've been going through it over the last, I think this is week 4. We've been kind of going through it. It's going to be a very 30,000 foot view for how you can look at your business, how you can become clear on what your business needs to look like, what you need to focus on, and where you need to go in order to accomplish your goal. So we're very, very excited about that. So check out the link, sign up. It's only going to be 10 people at this price point. The first 10 people that get in here. After that, we can't promise on what the prices are going to be, but we'll see. We might extend it to a second cohort and then see how things kind of go. But again, we're very excited about that. And one other announcement before we get into it, just make sure that if you haven't already, get your tickets for the Young Professionals Leadership Summit. That is coming October 19th. Time is flying. October 19th. That's like, what is that, like 3 weeks away, 3.5 weeks away? It has really snuck up on us, but we're very, very excited for it. We have great plans. We're going to have giveaways. We actually got some partners that are going to be giving away some swag. We're going to be challenging you. We have some amazing speakers that we just kind of got. Actually, we got kind of assorted. We got kind of we got it planned out, kind of what their speeches are going to be, what the specifics are going to be that we're going to be really challenging on, the case studies that we're going to be creating, the different types of challenges that we're going to be putting out. So we're very, very excited about it. So go to YPL SUMMIT, that's YPLsummit.com. Get your tickets. Again, there's still some that are available for in person. And obviously, if you can't make it to Toronto on October 19th, totally fine. You can get your online tickets. I believe those are $20. And then if you get in-person tickets or online tickets, either way, you're going to have access to the virtual event, to the footage forever. So you can go back, take your notes, and do all that kind of fun stuff. So go to YPLSUMMIT.com. That's YPLsummit.com. And get your tickets now. Save your spot. Very excited for it. But now, on to what we're going to be talking about today. So last week, and I know last week it said your strategy core part 1 of 2, and now it's 2 of 3. I don't want to throw a bunch of stuff at you and then you not be able to implement it, not understand it, or just be too much. So next week it might be 3 out of 5. I don't know. We'll see. Because as I start to create these, and that's the fun thing about doing these live, is as I kind of go through them and kind of narrate them myself in my head and start to really break down the steps. Because again, I've done this a long time and we do it with our clients, but these steps we haven't really clearly ever tried to like break down and map out. Because when it comes to the strategy, and I've said this before, a lot of the cookie cutter template style strategies, they're just a bunch of goal setting. They're a bunch of vision, core values, all this which is super important. Absolutely do that kind of stuff, but it's not a strategy. Strategies are very particular. They're very specific for each business. Every business has different strengths. Again, obviously different industries, different people, different products, different services, different demographics that they're competing within, different psychographics that they're competing within. So strategy is not a cookie cutter thing. And it's not something that, okay, this is a strategy that worked in this business, so let's just copy and paste it and put it in this business and it's going to work. The magic is how did you create that strategy that worked for this business? Not the strategy itself, it's how did you create it? So it's practicing your critical thinking, those frameworks, and how you come up with the strategy itself. And then how do you put it into a coherent plan, a coherent structure that works for your business? So as we're kind of putting it together, we're really trying to map out, okay, what could this tangibly look like? What are the steps in place? What are the questions that you can ask? What are the different views that you can take? So as we're doing this, it just keeps expanding. So hopefully not too much, but anyways. So today we're going to talk map your path, the strategy core 2 out of 3. So today we're going to focus on, if you go over to the right, if you can squint and see, it's how will we be measuring our success? How will we measure your success? Now, this is one that oh wait, I just took myself off the stage. There we go. I look at my numbers every day. Um, and we ask the question, how well do you know your business? The walls come up, ego's right there. And, they're like, I know my business really well. It's my business. I started it. It's my baby. And then as we kind of go through some of these exercises and these questions, I start to say, oh man, maybe I didn't know my business as well as I thought. And it's not that you don't know, okay, who's on your team and, what are your sales at, what's your sales process and this kind of stuff, but it's how does your business look on the outside? What are the things that make it successful to your demographic, to your market? I'd be really, really surprised how many people don't truly know that. But really quickly, let's go through kind of what we have been talking about. So we talked about the difference between good and bad strategy. So bad strategy fails to address critical issues. It's just a random set of conflicting objectives and mistakes goal setting with strategy. We talked about that before. It's just a cookie cutter template strategy. Here, give me your core values. Okay, now you have a strategy. Cool. That's not it. Relies on charismatic leadership. Some of the best leaders in the world are not charismatic. Good strategy. Spearheaded by a powerful vision, is led by an honest diagnosis of the challenge, creates guiding principles to simplify and overcome the obstacles. It takes both internal and external factors into consideration. It's followed through with structured and coherent actions and made up of proximate objectives. And there was an example that we went through. I think it was not last week, but the week before, when we really broke down the difference between good and bad strategy. I think it's the one with Paco, who's the individual that is going to be running the challenge with us. We talked about how this is exactly the framework of this is exactly the strategy, or it exemplifies the strategy that John F. Kennedy used to get the U.S. to beat Russia to the moon. And when it came out, it seemed so, there's no way, this is so crazy. We're going to send somebody to the moon. This is wild. This is such a stretch goal, right? There's like no way that we can't comprehend that we're going to be able to do this. But they already had a plan on how to do it. They had already, before he made that announcement, they went through all of this. It was spearheaded by a powerful vision to put the U.S. on top as the technology, the leader, the world leader, is led by an honest diagnosis of the challenge. There's hundreds of engineers in the back end that already had, this is what we needed to focus on to beat the Russians. This is what we have currently that is our strengths. This is what we can leverage. This is what we can focus a little bit less of our resources on, so we can put our resources over here because this is where we're really weak. They created guiding principles to simplify and overcome the obstacles. So obstacles internally were getting our rocket boosters big enough to send individuals to the moon, to send all that equipment to the moon. Externally was making sure that we didn't leak any of our information to the public and that we controlled the public narrative. And it's followed through with structured and coherent actions. So obviously timelines, getting the right people on the job, mapping up, putting rovers on the moon to make sure that the moon is actually landable. Because I think just before that, they didn't even know it was on the moon. They didn't know what it looked like. They could have been jagged crystals for all they knew. And again, that objective, it was proximate. So it was something that they could achieve. Absolutely. It was a stretch. Sure, it was tough. We went to the moon, but it was approximate objectives. They had a plan that they knew that they could do it. And then understanding what the vision of your company is. And we talked through some examples on why this is so important, and some of the best companies in the world, how their strategy is aligned with their vision, and that vision really acts as that North Star. But we take it a step further. We want you to be so sure that your vision is on point that you need to be able to answer why. Why is that your vision? We want to be able to accomplish X because Y. And you'd be really surprised when we go through this part of working with our clients. Okay, this is your vision statement. Great. Why? Put a because on the end of that, and then finish the sentence. We want to be able to blah, 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 because. And a lot of people, they just wanted like a fancy vision statement that, sounded good and it could rally the troops and that kind of stuff. But it's not true. Why? It's not going to hold any weight. It's not going to last over time. So you have to be able to answer why. And you'd be surprised how many, when they try to answer the why, it greatly adjusts what their actual vision is and becomes much more real, becomes much more accurate, so to speak. From there, we talk about the diagnosis. So know your business. You'd be so surprised how many people don't know their business and why it's successful. I had somebody on the podcast. His name's Edgar, and we talked about he does merger and acquisitions. And he told a story about how one of his clients, they had bought a business. They brought him in, kind of decipher some things in the business. Why is this business valuable? All this kind of stuff. And they were looking at the numbers like, this business is crushing it. We got it for a steal. What is making it so successful? Their plan was actually to franchise it. And so Edgar came in. He's like, it's because their customer service is absolutely crushing it. Your return customer rate is huge, absolutely huge. So if you go and franchise it, you're going to take away a lot of that, like the brand trust that you have. The people that are working there, they might not be as bought in to the business itself, to wanting to work hard for the business itself, because it's going to have a completely different image, right? So understanding why your business is the way it is super important. And part one is what are you currently capable of? So what makes you uniquely capable of accomplishing this? And by this, we mean the vision. What makes you so great at what you do? So it's understanding what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses. And that means knowing your landscape, both internally and externally. What are your competitors? What is your market? What are the buying patterns of the people in your market? What are, against some of these companies are seasonal, or they go with the market, or the ebbs and flows of supply and demand of other products and other services and other businesses. You have to know the landscape, right? So some of your capabilities could be, what are the strengths you can leverage, right, against weaknesses or opportunities? And that's really the core of what strategy is. It's leveraging strengths against weaknesses and opportunities. And this could be a strength of the founder. And one example of this is Reed Hastings, when him and Mark, I think his name is Mark, when they started Netflix and they were going after venture capital money. Reed had an amazing, he demanded respect. He had a lot of respect. He had a lot of resources. He had a lot of contacts. He had an amazing network. So they leveraged him, put him on, basically made him the CEO, because people saw Reed at the helm. And they're like, oh, here's my money. Here's $5, $26, $70 million. He leveraged his strengths. And that was experience, network, and his skills. Obviously, he is an amazing leader. He brought Netflix to where it is today. And I think he stepped down only last year, I believe so. What are the strengths of the organization? So what are the competitive advantages you have? Isolating mechanisms or strategic resources. And these could be patents, reputations, like I was talking about with Reed, network effects. So like think Apple, right? Who wants to be texting a green pop-up? Gross. Ugh. Right? Get an iPhone. I'm never going to text you again. It's a network, part of a network effect. Or the skills that you have, or property that is difficult for competitors to duplicate without suffering net income loss. And we talked about that last week, and we'll go into exactly what that means too much today. Now, possible challenges and issues. That's part two of the diagnosis. What are the weaknesses, threats, or challenges? You got to be honest with this. My God, so many people are not honest with this one. Go into this looking at your challenges, looking at your threats, weaknesses with a radical open mind. You have to challenge your biases and inside views and social herding. So inside views is basically like my kid's the cutest kid. And then everybody else on the outside is like, no, that's not true. That's an inside view, right? You can only see, you have tunnel vision, right? You're in the day-to-day of your business. You can't see anything else that's really going on. You think you're either crushing it or you think everything's falling apart. But really, if you're able to step back and take an objective outside view, an objective viewpoint, you would see a very different story. And then social herding as they're doing it, so I'm just going to do it, right? Safety in numbers type of thing. These are internal. Some examples. Where do you as the founder owner get sucked back into the most? So if you get sucked back into, our sales team just keeps falling apart and you have to keep going back into it, it probably means that there's either not good leadership, your process sucks, or just nobody wants to buy your stuff. What do you as the founder owner need to focus the majority of your personal resources on? So that's time, energy, or your bandwidth. And so this could be, okay, here's my strengths. Here's where I should be spending most of my time, but I'm not. I'm spending it all over these other places because I have to jump in. There's fires to put out. And historically, what have been areas of inconsistent or reoccurring frustration? So examples of this is companies, especially in like home improvement, even in some software as well, is like brokers, insurance, that kind of stuff, is it's hard for them to outcompete the market. So in other words, if the market's down, they go down. If the market's up, they're up. So historically, if you've had issues outperforming the market, not outperforming, just going with the market, or not outperforming your competitors during those times, then that would be historic data that says this is some weaknesses that we need to overcome. External could be competitors. These are some questions actually that I like to ask. So you talk about competitors, ask yourself this question: if a competitor were to beat us, how and why? If you were to go out of business tomorrow, what would be the cause? And are there policies that are or could threaten us in the future? So I think like government policies and stuff that come through. And there's a lot that get affected around, especially like lead acquisition and that kind of stuff. There's a lot of policies that come through the pipeline randomly that could affect how you run your day-to-day business. And then competitive markets that could dictate your decisions. And I talked all about it last week about why focusing on competing can sometimes be a bad thing. So if you go into a more commoditized competitive market, your profit margins are going to shrink to nothing because you're going to be dictated on, okay, what are your competitors doing? What are people willing to buy? Because there's so many options for people that it's tough to differentiate yourself. And then you get put in a spot where, inertia by proxy, where you just can't get out of it without going broke. So that was really quick. I almost ran out of breath, but I got through as quick as I could. We're not going to do an overview next week, because just go watch the other weeks. But today we're going to talk about, again, how will you measure your success? Measuring success. And this can be summed up as, what is your dominant economic driver? Now, this could be like, let me give you an example here. I always come back to like health and fitness, because this is a great example. Now, if you're trying to get in better shape, and we all only focused on the one metric of whether you're progressing or not, and that is the scale. Am I losing weight? All right, that's the big one. A lot of people seen Biggest Loser, Jillian Michaels, and that kind of stuff. That's all they look at is the scale. Now, with where they're at, the scale's okay. But for the most time, for the most people, just focusing on the scale as your unit of success isn't innately accurate. Isn't. Because women can fluctuate pounds, depending on their cycles and that kind of stuff, depending on what you ate. If you ate something that's high in sodium or carbohydrates or that kind of thing, like, you can soak up a lot of water weight and look like you gained 10 pounds. And then you freak out and you make bad decisions of like either not eating, working out too much, or starving yourself, or whatever it is, to lose those 10 pounds, when really it's just this water weight. And it's not an actual indicator of your fluctuating success. So if you just look at the weight, it forces you to make decisions that will only focus on and only change the number on the scale. And you can run into issues with that, because you can lose weight in many different ways. You can wrap yourself in cellophane and go on the treadmill or on the bike or something for 10 minutes, lose a bunch of water weight, and like, oh, I lost 5 pounds yesterday. Well, okay, no, you're just dehydrated, and now you're not functioning properly because a lot of water's out of your brain now, and you're not able to think properly. And your last meeting went bad, your last sales call went bad, you're making bad decisions. It's just not a good thing. It's not an indicator of health. Now, if let's say you used a different unit of measurement to determine your success, I like to always blood panels. Go get your blood taken. Are they better or worse? That's a pretty good indicator if you're getting healthier or not. If your goal is to be healthy, if you're getting in shape to be healthier, look at that. Look at the blood panels. Look at your performance. How are you feeling? How are you performing in the gym or in other places? Oh, it took me 20 minutes to run 5K rather than 30 minutes. Right? You're getting in better shape. It's probably a better indicator that you're improving your health than just looking at the scale. Because if you look at the scale, it forces you to make short-sighted decisions. And that's very similar to a lot of business owners here. And yes, your profit margins are obviously crazy important. What is your profit? How much money did you make after expenses? That is super, super important. But if you only focus on that, it could force you to make more short-sighted decisions. And I have 2 examples of past clients today where that was exactly the case. And when we shifted their perspective, when we shifted their focus, what they determined their success on made a huge difference in their business, made an absolutely huge difference in their business. And we'll give you an example of that. So first, let's all get on the same page. What you measure matters. So the thing that you're measuring, does its increase truly indicate success in your business? Is it vanity or truth? And that's the other thing too. We focus so much on vanity metrics. Oh, our gross revenue is this. We must be crushing it. And I'm going to focus on that because that's the biggest number and it looks good. It doesn't mean much, right? It helps in the grand scheme of things, and it's something that you utilize. It's a data point that you utilize to make decisions. But it doesn't necessarily mean you're succeeding, you're improving or not, at least by itself. And what are your success indicator metrics pushing your focus towards? Like I said, if you just focus on the weight on the scale, you're only focusing on your weight. And there's lots of roundabout ways that you can lose weight that aren't necessarily healthy. I was just watching part of a baseball game and Ozempic was everywhere. Shooting yourself up with Ozempic and losing some weight doesn't mean that you're healthier. And I'm not going to get into that debate, but you see what I mean? It forces you to make short-sighted decisions. Very short-sighted decisions. It can. And does it take into account your gain to operating in different sectors of your business? Now that's going to be a big one. What are your gain to operating sectors? What are your gain to operating metrics? So let's get on the same page as what gain to operating means. There's specifies the performance of specific outlets or sectors of your business against its overall performance. So I'm lost 10 pounds. Am I healthier? No. Okay. So that doesn't actually mean that it's one small piece, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm getting healthier by itself. All right. So another one could be, and this is another example that we're going to be kind of going into today. But if you're a business and you're just focusing on your net profit, and maybe you have multiple products, and you think, okay, if I keep adding more products, we're going to sell more and our profit's going to go up. But then you dive into it a little bit more and you realize, oh, I could actually cut half of our products that we're selling and actually be more profitable. But because you're only focusing on the one metric, it forces you to make more short-sighted decisions, and your biases come into play at that point. So operating sectors or outlets or sectors, they could be product lines, like we just said, types of services, operating locations. So you have multiple locations in your business, bolt-on entities. So did you acquire a company that it's a bolt-on? So it's something that helps the process, or maybe you're another vertical of what you offer, so that you can kind of, they come into this business, and then the natural thing for that client or customer to do is to flow into your main business. So could it be a bolt-on entity, or is it different revenue generating verticals? So your sales, if you have a bunch of different types of marketing tactics that you're running at the same time, what is the revenue generating from each one of those? So you can look at your revenue generating verticals as well. Now, this example, this was a home and garden company. So there was a older couple. They owned kind of some like garden, you buy flowers and the stuff that people use to deck out amazing gardens. So they owned a couple locations. They owned 6 locations, and they were spread throughout a region. One was actually new within the last 2 years. So it was about a year and a half old. Their total yearly net profit was $585,000, which was an increase of $80,000 from last year. And I actually think it was $595,000. I think that was a typo. I think it was $595,000. They bonus based on company performance. So each of the store managers, they got a bonus based on, did the company make more money? So in this case, last year they made a bit of a bonus because there's an increase of, what is that, like 15%, something like that. And now they want to expand to another 2 locations in the next 3 years. They expanded 1 location this year, and because they did that, it went up $80K from last year. So now they're equating in their minds, again, their biases, they're in their minds, it's more locations means more profit. So that's where they're at right now. So they want to expand to another 2 locations in the next 3 years. But they want to ensure that performance standards are upheld in these new locations, which, as they should. So right now they're focusing on their current economic driver is their yearly net profit. Okay, so again, this is where most, so it was 500, that was a typo, it was 595,000. This is where most companies will focus, are you succeeding? Are you improving or not? They'll focus on their net profit, which I get. It's an indicator. It is one focus point, right? It is one, but it's only one. Now, is this actually an indicator of success for them? So does this increase in their net profit truly indicate success in your business? Yes, but only short term. And from one viewpoint. Are we making more money? Yes, we are, But what does that look like for next year? And what could that look like rolling over the next 2 or 3 years? What does the flywheel look like? What are your success indicator metrics pushing your focus towards? In this case, it was pushing their focus towards expanding locations. They thought expanding locations meant more profit. And it takes into account, does it take into account your gain to operating in different sectors of your business? And they did not compare individual store performance. They were not comparing that. They were looking at the overall improvement of the company itself. So what we did is we're like, okay, because they wanted to expand and uphold their performance, the individual store performance, the individual store quality. So like, okay, let's take a look and make sure that we can do that. Make sure that we're currently doing that. So we compared location performance. We did a root cause analysis and we compared our findings with their current strategy. So in other words, is the diagnosis that we did, right, was our current findings from our diagnosis, was it in conjunction with the outcome they're looking for if they implemented their current strategy? And that's what we did. And what we do is we kind of create a chart. So we had them line up their most successful store to their least successful store and their net profit for each one. And it created what we call a hump chart. And a hump chart's not necessarily what you want. So it looked like this. So as you can see, I keep thinking that you can see my mouse, but you can't. But so their first store, so their highest performing store was crushing it. They're doing like $450,000 a year in net profit. So it was crushing it. And it was their best location. It was kind of like their prime, corporate location. So it was in a very good spot. But their next, I was doing pretty good too. I think it was right around the $200,000 in profit. The next one was still doing pretty good. I think it was in the 80,000, something like that profit. But then you can see, where does it go from there? Now they're losing. Now they're losing money. So they ended up, so this last dot on the very end over location 6, that's the 595,000. So you could see if right now, they would actually be more profitable instead of adding stores. They could take 3 stores away and technically be more profitable. They would be, almost $800,000 if they took away 3 locations. Now, is that a long-term, the smartest thing to do? Probably not. Probably not. But was their strategy of adding 2 more stores the right one? Probably not. Probably not, because you could see where would this go? I mean, if it was to keep going. So right now, if they're already spread this thin, and they weren't, the other thing that they were doing is they weren't really, there's a lot of nuances. They weren't focusing on necessarily the store location. The way they would set up stores was optimized for those first 2 locations and not necessarily for those other locations. Their overhead was a little bit more because maybe I think the leases were a little bit more expensive in the other places as well. Management wasn't as strong. They're a little bit further away, so they weren't able to keep as much of an eye on the store. So there's a lot of factors that went into it. But their strategy right now, if they were to focus their energy, would adding 2 more stores be the way to go for them? Probably not. Probably not. So we shifted. We adjusted their economic driver, which is profit per store. We set up a guiding principle. A guiding principle is individual. This is one of many guiding principles, but this is a good example I wanted to put on here, is individual stores need to keep their total profit percent above 10% of the total profit. So if they were making $1 million profit and they had 10 stores, I guess they had $1 million profit each store, they needed to stay above $100,000 in profit. That was the goal. And if they dropped below that, then they went on sort of like an adjustment plan for them, an improvement plan for them. So that's how we adjusted our economic driver. Now, let's answer those questions again. Does their increase truly indicate success in their business now? Profit per store. Yes, each store is now bonus. They actually bonus, because before, remember, they were bonusing. They were giving these managers bonuses, and their stores were bleeding them money. The main store was subsidizing all the other ones. And they were still getting bonus. Like, I'm just keep doing what I'm doing. Why not? So now they're bonused on their individual success. Are they meeting metrics? Are they meeting the standards? And then what is their success metrics, their success indicator metrics pushing their focus towards? Improving the performance and quality of each location. And this is actually a very similar thing that Walgreens actually did. They used to judge their economic driver was performance per region. So there would be 10, 20 stores per region, and they would judge the performance of that region. And that's how they gauge their success. Well, you could see that if there was 10 stores, 3 of them were carrying all the other ones, and the other ones, they went to hell. They were gross, and because of that, those Walgreens were actually dropping the performance of the other ones because their brand image was going down. Like, these people that usually would go to these Walgreens, like, Walgreens go, so I'm going over to CVS now, or wherever else. I'm going to my local grocery to get my stuff. So they changed their economic driver to profit or performance per store as well. They did a very similar thing, and they completely changed Walgreens around. They changed where the entrance was. They changed where the registers were. They changed where the actual, like, where you had to go pick up your prescriptions, the pharmacy was. They changed a lot, and they added some things, took some things away. But they did that because they focused on the right economic driver. Does it take into account their gain to operating in different sectors of your business? They created that rising chart versus a hump chart, and it's much easier now because they're focusing on store versus store performance. It's easier for them to zoom into specific locations. Okay, so this location is not performing very well. Why? What is the demographic here? What's the location look like? How can we adjust some of these things? Oh, over here they buy less flowers and this kind of stuff. They buy more of this product. Let's put these products in the front and maybe stock more of these products. It allows them to make adjustments a little bit quicker, which can make a huge difference. And their chart looked like that. They dropped 2 of their stores. They kept the third one. They kept the one that they had just opened because it was one of the reasons that it dropped is because it was still kind of overcoming the cost of opening. So now it looks like this. It's a rising chart rather than a hump chart. Much better, much better. And I'm sure in a few years, it'll look even better than that as they get used to looking at the numbers like that and focusing on each individual store. Because obviously they can run a very profitable store. They have 2 very profitable stores, and the other ones are going to catch up now that they're focused. And that's the biggest thing, is focus. That's what this allows you to do. Having a proper economic driver, an economic focus, allows you to focus on the right things and put resources into the right things. So really quickly, let's go through another example. Real estate investment company that we worked with. They were fully vertical, right? So they, from purchase to construction to sale, they did everything. And their focus was their yearly net profit, and they were bonused on project completion time. And they're aiming that year that we were working with them, their goal when we came in was an increase of 15 projects per year. Now, keep in mind, they were a small team, and they wanted to keep it that way because everybody on their team was very good at what they did. Very, very good at what they did. They weren't necessarily streamlined because everybody knew what they were doing. Everybody was the hero, so they just kind of did their own thing. They did what they needed to do. But in order for them to stay small and tack on 15 projects per year with a non-streamlined process, but they equated, because their focus was, we're just going to do more smaller projects. We're going to focus on smaller subsidized housing. We're going to do a ton of projects. So they equated more projects with more profit. And that wasn't the case. So they had more than 10 projects this year, but they focused on their yearly net projects, and this is what their chart looked like. Now, this is still a hump chart. They weren't losing. I think if we added the other, I think 7 or 8 projects on the end of this one, it would have just flattened out and maybe could drop down a little bit. But at that point, they're really only profitable until 9 projects. So adding 15, would that have been the best idea? Probably not. So what was their current economic driver, their current focus, forcing them to focus on? Does that increase truly indicate success in your business? Yes, but again, only short term and from one viewpoint. And as overhead increases, so by doing more projects, they have to hire more contractors, more equipment, more room for error, because now, again, smaller team, they're going to be running all over the place. The profit is going to disappear, and it increases the chances of mistakes, which hurts their brand. And that's one thing that they had going for them. They had such a strong brand in their market, like immaculate, very good brand. And what were their success indicator metrics pushing them to focus on? Which is more projects, do more. Did it take into account your gain operating in different sectors of our business? It did not compare individual project performance. We had 5 projects. This was our outcome. Other 5 projects. This was our outcome. This was our profit. So it did a little bit, but not enough for them to clearly make the right decisions. So we adjusted it as profit per project. And the guiding principle is utilize their high value brand to focus on fewer, bigger projects. They're in a space where they had a lot of competition going after these more subsidized properties. So they were already in a very competitive market. So it was really price at that point. It was more of a commodity. They were in more of a commodity market. So they were going into a market now with the higher quality, bigger builds that had less competition and that they could crush because they had such a good brand. Very good. They had a nice office. People loved to be there. It was immaculate. It looked great. It looked really good. So they wanted to utilize their high value brand to focus on the fewer, bigger projects. So smaller team, less mistakes. They had more power to negotiate. So their profit margins went up just for that alone. Overhead was less. They were dealing with less contractors and they could focus. Their team wasn't as spread out all the time. So now, does their increase in this economic driver truly indicate success in their business? Yes, realtors, they're bonused based on profits per deal and their reviews. So they're getting better reviews, right? They're getting bonus per profit per deal rather than just how many did you get done? How many projects did you get done? What are your success indicator metrics pushing your focus towards? Improving client experience and the product. That's what it's pushing them towards. They still have, they're still quicker. Their project completion time is still better, but they're able to focus much more on giving an amazing experience to the client or to the investor. And they're able to provide a much better product with less mistakes. And they're able to focus on marketing and all these other things, putting together we put all their SOPs together and stuff with them, and we helped them hire VAs and this kind of stuff. So it worked out great. Takes into account their gain to operating in different sectors of the business, pushes focus on finding quality materials, contractors, and higher value markets and higher value marketing tactics. So it pushed their focus more towards quality and negotiating properly, having time, not just throwing together paperwork. And it made a huge difference. It made a huge difference for them. So these were two examples of why it's so important to understand what you're measuring and how that can dictate or impact your decisions, your true success, your long-term success. And this isn't something that okay, I'm gonna define my company's economic driver, and then this is just the way it's going to be forever. No, it changes, it adjusts. And again, this is the strategy core. This isn't the strategy. This isn't the coherent action plan that we're talking about. This is a 30,000 foot view. These types of things are going to change. What is your economic driver is going to change? Your business is going to look different. It is. Your business is going to grow. You're going to have more people on your team. Your product's going to look a little bit different. Maybe you're going to go into other markets. Or like the home and garden company, they went into, when they were in different locations, they had to adjust. They did have to adjust some of their how they adjusted or how they lined out their products. Like what do they put by the door? What do they emphasize more in the flower room, or what do they call the nursery? That's what it's called, the nursery. You make changes, so it is going to change. So it doesn't need to be. This isn't written in stone, but it does need to be looked at often. Is what we're measuring, is what we're putting the most emphasis on, pushing us to make the right decisions, and getting really, really clear on what that is, and then getting really, really clear on when to look to adjust it is big, massive for your business. So that was the focus for today. It's really focusing on what you focus on. I'm saying focus a lot today. Is really understanding, is what you are currently measuring going to get you in the right direction, pushing you in the right direction? And it's not that okay, we're going to put a screen in our business. We're going to put a screen up in the office. I want everybody to put it on your phone, and every time a sale comes through, it's going to ding. No, it's not what I mean. It's everybody in your business. They have everyone, especially in the CRM, they have a page that they have a section in there that they always sit there and refresh all day. It's how are we doing today? How are we doing today? How are we doing today? Every business owner has one of those screens. And which one are you looking at the most? Which one is your first kind of your red flag mechanism that forces you that okay, we need to make a decision. We need to adjust some things. What is that you're looking at? Oh, we're doing good this year. What are you looking at? Okay, well, look at all the metrics. Okay, but what are you looking at more often than not? Because there is that one that raises the alarm, that forces you to look at everything else. What is that one? What is that one? And if that one goes up, it means you're more likely on the right track. And understanding that's very important, very, very important. And it's a big part of your strategy. Big part of your strategy. Because then you look at that metric, you break it down into its key results, into its finer pieces, and then that's where some of the coherent actions we were talking about, that's where the formula of those, the domino effect of those, is focused, is adjusting those micro metrics. So anyways, really quickly, before we go, just a reminder, check out the link in the description. Oh, they lost me? Oh, I'm back. Check out the link in the description. Put it there again. Boom. Is it going to go? Yeah, there we go again. Check it out. If you want more clarity in where you're going with your business, making the right decisions, make better decisions, making more confident decisions, and setting your business up on the right path. Are you going in the right direction right now? How do you make those decisions? How do you adjust? And then get challenged from both us and your peers. And you can look at things from different perspectives, because you're going to see other business owners in different industries, different products, completely different industries. I think we have a few people signed up already. One's in like tech and one is home improvement. So you're going to see a lot of different perspectives, and that is so valuable, very valuable. So we're very excited about that. But I really appreciate everybody here, whether you're here live. We quite again, X is crushing it for us. I've been saying that every week, but X, appreciate you. Really appreciate you all for being here. If you're watching the recording, that is awesome. I really appreciate you too. Go to the comments, hit up the sengetStarted.com/home to check out more about the challenge and how you can get your business on the right track and get more clarity and focus so you can set yourself up on the path to success. But until next time, everybody, keep chasing your next